screen's going now. So you see this one with the materials that's spotlighted, and then you might see me over there. So hi. Yep, my name is Aram Sifuentes. I do a lot of projects with sewing, and like the project, the banner that Trisha was showing was from the protest banner lending library. And yeah, it worked out where I have so much fabric from all the protest banners, and I have a whole bin of fabrics that are too small for banners. And I have all this bias tape because that's what I attach to the corners of my banners as the straps of the banners. And so when I saw that there was like this need to make fabric masks and what materials I needed, I was so lucky that I had all the materials just like ready to go. Of course, and my sewing machine and knowing how to sew. And so I've been making masks for healthcare workers, essential workers, and right now I've been focused on making masks for incarcerated people, which I'll put the link up later, but you know, a few different organizations, including the P.O. Box Collective, put together like mask making for mutual aid, where they have more info on the different prisons in Illinois that you could send the masks to. So as we get started, I'll go over the materials again one more time. Some people were here when I went over them earlier, so I'm sorry to repeat myself, but you'll need a cotton, a breathable cotton, but one that's tightly woven, right? Meaning that how you could check that is if you put it up to the light. If a lot of light is bleeding through and you see that the cotton is pretty thin, then it's not an ideal material, because that just means that it's not tightly woven and that a lot of particles can come through it, right? So this one is sort of a quilting material, and it's a good one to use. I was saying earlier that cotton t-shirts are good to use. Dish towels are really good to use. Bed sheets with high thread count. Those are all really good materials to use. So ideally, you want to use a pre-washed one. You want to wash it because a lot of cotton shrinks, right? So if you have a new fabric, it's ideal to wash it ahead of time so that it doesn't like shrink and get all weird looking at the end when you wash it afterwards. So this material, or this one, is my cloud fabric. A lot of people know I really love clouds pattern. So this is 9.5 by 9.5 here by 19.5. And this one we will use to make a adult size mask. So go ahead and cut your fabric, your cotton fabric, to 9.5 by 19.5. And if you want to make a youth size fabric, size mask, then you can make one that's 8 by 15. And we put that in the chat as well. So these are the different examples of the ones we'll be making. So as you guys are cutting the fabric and ready, if you can give me, on the bottom of the screen, you'll see the black toolbar. If you can sort of give me you'll see reactions as one of them next to record. If you could give me a thumbs up, that would be really helpful, just to let me know that you are ready for the next step. Thank you, Reed. See your thumbs up. Abel, thank you. Cool. Yeah, this is the only step I like pre-did, so everything else I'll be doing with you. It's 9.5 this way, and then 19.5. 19.5 by 9.5. And then youth is 8 by 15. Cool. I will go over the next step. So if you're still cutting, don't worry, you'll be able to catch up. And yeah. So what you want to do is you want to put it the pattern side down, or whichever, if you're picking a fabric that has like a front and back, put the front face down. So with these smaller edges, the top and bottom, these two ends, we're going to fold them. It's about ½ an inch, my fold. You can use your iron in this instance to sort of like really help fold that down. And we're gonna turn it one more time. So if you don't have an iron, if you just press pretty hard with your hand, firmly with your hand, you know, most cottons will sort of hold the shape. So you can see that I didn't iron it, but it's holding the shape pretty well. And you can also use the T-pins or the pins, whatever pins you have, and sort of pin the edges down just to hold it in place. So when you're pinning, make sure you go through both layers and then come back up through both layers. So again, pinning through, great. Now I'm gonna grab my needle and thread. So thread your needle. And with this thread, don't make it longer than your arm. So about this length is good. And then I'm gonna cut it over here. So you can see that I have two layers happening. And then at the end here, I'm going to make a knot. So the best way to make a knot is to wrap it around your finger, grab that loop, or grab that tail, and pull it through your loop. Right? Sort of hard to see. Let me see if I can. So you're pretty much just making a little knot at the end. And just to make it secure, I like to double up on my knot and tying that. Great. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to do the running stitch and we're going to sew this down. I'll show you what the running stitch is. So I'm going to undo this now that I'm ready. I'm going to start at the end here. You can do either the middle or sort of more toward this end. And when you're doing sewing stitches, you could just think about it in terms of like creating a straight line, right? So we're creating a dotted line here. So as you can see, I have my one stitch. I go one stitch over, go up. Of course, my thread's already tangling. And then going down. And this is just the basic stitch that we'll be using for throughout. So like I said, create that dotted line, that next stitch, and you go down. Don't pull too tight because then it will sort of like ruche the fabric. So up and then down. If anyone wants me to like slow down or go over any steps, please let me know. I'm happy to do so. So again, just going up, then going down. And this stitch you could do pretty quickly. So it's called a running stitch because it's like the fastest stitch you could do. And of course it's, you know, still really slow because sewing is slow. But what you could do is use your other hand and sort of help your needle up, like push it up. And so you could do multiple stitches in one go. So up, going down, going up, down, up. And then you can pull and see that I was able to do 4 stitches just right there. In, up. Of course, be careful not to poke yourself as you sort of push the needle up from behind the fabric. And so if you're already done with this side, do the same thing on the next side. And, you know, as I'm getting near my pin, then I just take it out. Okay. At the end here, I like to go back in here. Let me wait till it focuses. Just to secure my stitch, and then I make a knot near the fabric, right? And then I like to do that one more time. So I usually wrap the needle, hold on to that loop, make sure that knot is near the fabric, and knot that off. Like I said, now I will do this on the next side. So there's a lot of different patterns for mask making. And you should really, if you're interested, explore the different patterns and just try them out. There's one that's more sort of circular and cups the face. They're called faux masks. And that one, they have patterns that you could just print and copy that out and cut your fabric according to that. This one, I picked this one just because this is like, you know, the one with pleats that require, that's easy just because, like, you know, it's a clear rectangle to start. So, but there's a lot of interesting masks as well. There's like one that sort of pops open. I'm sure you guys have seen a lot of different styles of masks. People, you know, often have very strong opinions about which ones are the best. So you should just try them out. If you are donating them or making more and donating them to different places, you should sort of check in with that place and see what they're asking for, because, you know, different places ask for different sorts of masks. So, you know, for example, there's like a pattern that's better for, you know, fabric masks that go over N95s. And some hospitals ask for those just to put over their N95s to make them last longer. So obviously, if that's the purpose, then, you know, there's a better sort of pattern for that purpose. So again, I'm doing this stitch on this side of it. I'm actually gonna bring this down a little bit so that you guys can have a sort of closer view of this stitch. Yeah, there's a lot of really great tutorials on YouTube on how to make different sorts of masks. So you should definitely explore those if you are interested. So I'm going to tie this, and I'm ready for the next step. So I will wait till you are ready for the next step. So like I said, again, when you're ready, if you can give me a thumbs up. And you know, with these masks, like making them by hand, there's still there's a lot of conflicting information out there, and a lot of new information that comes up, you know, because they haven't really been tested thoroughly, you know. Um, and so, yeah, we were just talking before about how I forgot who mentioned it. Was it Debbie who mentioned that, you know, they saw an article about like if you put a layer of pantyhose it um, as your mask, then it also helps to filter out a lot of particles. And so there's like new information that is constantly coming up. You know, in the beginning, a lot of the information was saying like flannel is one of the best materials. But over time, people started writing that flannel is not a good material because it absorbs moisture and is good in that sort of way, but it's not very breathable. And because it's good at absorbing moisture, like different sorts of bacteria can grow in flannel. So it gets a little overwhelming, but you know, we could do our best and don't let that stop you from making masks, because nothing, we know that like nothing is, or something is better than nothing, right? This one will have a pocket for a filter. um, I personally, you know, like putting filters in, and I will also briefly go over what sort of filters you can use. Any questions so far? All right, is awesome. Who's ready for the next step? Do you need a couple more minutes? I see a few thumbs up. Looks like a couple more minutes might be cool. See a couple more thumbs up. Okay, about 2 more minutes and then I will go over the next step. Luckily the steps are pretty easy, so if you aren't caught up, then you hopefully the steps are easy enough where I think you can catch up pretty quickly. Now, 1 more minute. So when I make them by machine, I do them a little bit differently. And I'm happy to share the links to that guide if you want to know how to make them with the machine. Obviously, machine has some advantages in terms of creating sort of sturdier stitches, and then also, so when you wash them and things like that, they're just sturdier, and that it's obviously much quicker. Okay, I'm gonna go over the next step. So what you wanna do is, now you want to place this in the center. These 2 seams. So overlap them by about 1 inch. Because like I said, this is gonna be our filter pocket. And then place that in the middle of your fabric, like so. And then you're gonna press down using either an iron or like I'm just doing with my hands. You just press this down. Great, yeah. I will, at the end, include the link to the pattern that I use for, or the steps that I use for the machine. Great. So with the pins, we're just gonna pin down the corners here just to keep it in place. So again, going through both, going up through both, and then you just need 2. So down here on this corner, and then push it through. Great. So now we're gonna flip it over. Actually, I'm sorry. Before we flip it over, fold it in half, hot dog style. And then this is where an iron is beneficial, but you can still use your hands. I'm gonna iron it just so that the creases are clear so you can see them. So I'm gonna quickly plug in my iron, turn that on. So like I said, fold it in half with the filter on the inside, or filter pocket on the inside. And it will feel a little thick because the filter pocket is sort of layered on the center there. And you don't need to iron it much. And then when you open it up, fold the half in half. Again, hot dog, right? And this is really just to use those creases as our pleat marks. So those are going to be the peaks of our pleats. So again, fold the half in half. Right. And then I'm just going to do that half one more time. So when you flip it over with the pleat pocket on the bottom, you see that there's 3 clear peaks. And like I said, if you just press it down without an iron, you can see them as well. But I just want to iron them so that it's clear, very visible for you. So this is where we'll need 6 of our pins. And what we want to do is this is where the pleats are going to happen. So this is probably the trickiest part of this whole thing, right? I like to start with the bottom one. So you grab the pleat and you fold it about 1/2 inch, right? So that there's 1/2 inch, right, of an overlap. And you want it to be even on both sides. And if you're picking a fabric that has an orientation, the pleat should be going down. So just letting you know, yeah, the pleats should be going downwards. And I'm not too sure why they say that the pleats should be going down. I think it is more protective, but I'm not sure exactly the science behind that. So you want to pin your pleats to hold them in place, right? So I'm gonna hold that in place, each corner. So now I'm on, so it's a little uneven, so I'm gonna fix that already. And then this second pleat, I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna remove the pins from the back, holding my pleat pocket in place, just because I don't need them anymore, and those pins are just sort of getting in my way. So again, folding it about 1/2 inch. Make sure that the pleats don't overlap, right? So they're sort of like next to each other and never on top of each other like this. Because when they're on top of each other, then sewing, it just becomes too much material, right? And so be careful that they're not on top of each other. So this pleat, you will feel that, you know, there's a lot of material here just because the pocket seams are also, you know, right behind here, and that's okay. And then at the top pleat, we're gonna do the same thing. And going over here. So that's what that's gonna look like on the front. And then this is what the back will look like. So the one disadvantage of this pattern is that, particularly for like medical professionals and things like that, they advise using a different fabric for the front and back so that you never confuse what is the front and back, right? Because obviously hygienically you don't want to put, you know, if you've been wearing this on the front, you don't want to then flip it over and put it where your mouth is. So, you know, it's a good idea to, like, with a Sharpie or something, just mark the back so you always know which side is the back and which side is the front. So once you have these pleats ready, great. Then you want to sew down with the same stitches that we used before. We want to just sew down this side and this side, right? So let's go ahead and do that. It'll be a little trickier than the first time just because there's a lot more fabric to go through. Trisha, are we gonna make this recording available somewhere?
Yes, Mabel just left and said thank you. So we'll send the recording to everyone who attended.
Great.
And it'll also be on our website.
Okay, great. So again, I'm getting my thread, knotting it at the end. And then I'm going to sew about a 1/4 inch in. That's where I'm going to start my stitches. And this side, it's this part, it's hard to do, you know, the running stitch where I did multiple stitches at once, just because, like I said, there's much more fabric to go through. The smaller and closer together your stitches are, the stronger that stitch becomes. So just keep that in mind when you're hand sewing. So if you're planning to make these for other people, you know, I recommend washing them beforehand because of the shrink factor, but also because, you know, then you're working with clean material. Some people recommend wearing gloves. I mean, yeah, wearing gloves, or it's hard to wear gloves while you're sewing, but wearing a mask while you're making it if you're not gonna wash it after. But of course, it's also a good idea to wash them afterwards before you give them to people. They do get all sort of, you know, wrinkly and funky, so washing them and then ironing them is a good idea. When you wash them, especially when you hand sew, it's a good idea to, you know, do like a very low tumble so that it doesn't get tossed around everywhere. Then your stitches, especially like I said, when you hand sew it, then they can come apart, get snagged on things and come apart sort of easily. So be careful of that. So low tumble, and then using a lot of heat so that you kill off a lot of the bacteria. So once you sew that side down, you could definitely then take out your pins since your stitches are holding it in place. Then now I'm going to do the other side. Don't worry if it's fraying a bunch. I like to cut it off just so it's clean, but we're actually going to be folding this over later in the next step. So again, on this side, starting about a 1/4 inch in and going straight down. After this, there's only one step left, and then an optional step of inserting the nose wire, which I'll go over both. So this is the front, and it opens up, and you see the back has the pocket for the filter. I'll wait a couple minutes to show the next part. But in the meantime, grab the elastic or whatever you want to use to put on the sides here. And like I said, if you don't have something at the moment, we can just you don't need something right away. So while you're working, I'm gonna pull up some of those links and share them to you via in the chat.
I put the PO box one in there, so that one's
great. Yeah, and with making them for incarcerated people, that step of, they ask, if you're making a filter pocket, putting the filter in there ready to go, since they won't be able to buy those or access those as easily, and then not including the nose wire. So like I said, it's good to check into the places you want to donate the mask to see what sort of requirements they ask for. Yeah, that PO box one, they have the mask making for mutual aid. They have, a whole spreadsheet of where to send the masks and how many, and they need like thousands and thousands of them. So any amount really helps. And if you can't cover the shipping or want them to cover it, they also have some funds available there to pay for the shipping. So if you're using elastic headbands or elastic or a piece of elastic, I recommend cutting it about 12 inches to start. Of course, if you don't have that much, then do your best, but it's better to start long and then tie it tighter than to do it too short to begin with. So I would recommend cutting 12, but at least 10 inches is what I recommend. And of course, when it's elastic, it's stretchy. So 10 inches of it, not being stretched out, right? Like you could see here, this one I made for my 4-year-old. The mask is a little big for her. But with these headbands, I have to tie them like almost halfway through for it to fit properly. So, yeah, and this is comfortable, or she liked it. But it's easier to like tie them afterwards to make them fit better than obviously to make them longer, because it's not possible. Let me look for that mask making link. Yeah, I'm just gonna have to add that link later. Awkwardly looking for it right now.
We can send it with the email later if that's easier.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, there's just like different reasons to use different materials, right? So, you know, there was like a big elastic shortage. So elastic's been sort of hard to find. And also, you know, for healthcare workers, some places asked for bias tape over elastic just because elastic, when you wear it for a long period of time, it can make your ears tired. And so they were sort of asking for bias tape. And of course, you know, most elastics having latex if there's latex allergies. And so, yeah, like I said, there's a lot of like different sort of requests depending on what they'll be used for. So I can show you an example of one I made, you know, with the machine. And this one I do it with the bias tape so that you could tie it over your head. And with the nose wire in the top here and a filter pocket and a different fabric for the back and a different fabric for the front. So it's easy to recognize. Great, so I will show the next step here. And like I said, it's the final step, and then I'll show the last thing being how to put a nose wire in if that's something you want to do. So you want to turn this over where the filter pocket is facing up, right? So the back of it is facing up. So what you want to do here is put the elastic down into here. And like I said, if you don't have something right now to put in here, just fold it over and then you'll be able to fit something in here later. So I put the elastic here, and you know, these decorative balls are getting in my way. So I'm just going to fold it about an inch over, as you can see, and I'm going to pin it down. So there, fold it an inch over, pin it down there. And then you see the middle is coming up. So I'm going to fold the middle and pin that down. And I'll do that on both sides, but I'll go ahead and just do it over here. So sort of where your initial or my initial stitches here, I'm going to go over it again, sort of like a 1/4 inch over. What you want to be careful of at this step is just that you're not going to sew over your elastic, right? Essentially, we're making a little pocket here for the elastic, or, you know, tape or shoelace or whatever strap you're using to sort of fit in that space. So now I'm just going to sew this part again.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
So you'll have a raw edge then. So would you want to use maybe a blanket stitch or put a piece of bias tape on there or fold it twice, do something so that you don't have that fraying edge?
Yeah, you could fold it twice or over a little bit, but for me, I think with all these stitches, it hasn't been a big deal to have that raw edge, especially because it's on the back side as well. Yeah, luckily this side I use the factory edge, but yeah, this side will be a raw edge. Yeah, if that raw edge bothers you, you know, and raw edges, it's ideal not to have them because over time the fabric will get loose over there. You know how it unweaves itself. The raw threads will kind of come loose, but I'm not too concerned with it because, like I said, I am using a bunch of these stitches to hold it down, and it's on the back side of it. So there's also like like um like a glue you can use to like stop edges from fraying if you see that, you know, after using it, it starts fraying a bunch of times. Yeah, and as I'm sewing that down, I'm removing the pins just because, you know, they're getting in my way and my stitches are holding them down. If you don't have something to put in there at the moment, you can also use, and you know, the groove is sort of small, so then you can use a bobby pin to, or a safety pin to help you guide it through. So I'm done with this edge, and then now I'm going to do it on this side as well. I'm really happy my child's letting me use her all her hair ties. She recently asked me for a haircut, so she doesn't need them anymore. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Thanks, sorry. You made a pocket for filter material?
Yes.
Are you going to explain what to put in there, what kind of filter material is appropriate and how big a piece you cut and you just push it in there, or?
Yes, I will go over that as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like to create the masks with the filter pocket just to have that option. And I've been putting filters in mine and did a bit of, you know, sort of looking up what's the best materials to put in. And so it just gives, you know, extra protection. So some things that you could put into the filter pocket are, you could put paper towel in there just to give extra protection there. So usually the best materials to put in as a filter. So now I'm done, right? So that this is the front now. Like I said, you'll wear it this way where the pleats go down. So the best, so you can put in paper towels in there for sort of extra protection. Cut a sheet and just put it in there. Coffee filters are a good material to use. So again, I sort of fold it in half, and you know, usually the coffee filters being circular, or the ones that are circular, they can sort of cup the face nicely. So that you can do. But one of the best materials to use as filters is Hepa filters. And so Hepa filters, let me quickly go upstairs and grab what an actual Hepa filter looks like. And then this has been deconstructed. And then I created the pleats like this again to fit in there so I could fit the face nicely. But let me just grab what an actual Hepa filter looks like. Grabbing it for the Hepa filters. So I bought these Hepa filters. So you want to make sure they say, yeah, that they say Hepa filter, because not all of these filters are Hepa filters. And that these are air purifying like filters, right? So they're made to like catch particles. And so they said that some testers, some places I was reading was saying this is like as good, if not better than having it at N95. So, sorry, my iron is beeping at me to let me know I've had it on for too long. So this is what they look like. And so it's a little bit, this one at least I found to be sort of a pain to deconstruct. But you see there's all these folded up pleated material. And so I just cut it up and like undid all the glue by hand to get sort of a sheet of the Hepa filter. And then I put these in the mask. But like I said, you know, coffee filters are good materials. Even paper towels are decent. But if you want the best sort of filter to put in your mask, the Hepa filters are what they say so far is the best material. Yeah. So if you're done with this, I will show, so you're finished, but if you want to put a nose wire, I'll show that last step. So the last step is putting in a nose wire, and that's optional. And why it's a good idea to put the nose wire is just that it's more comfortable. If you, let me see if I can, okay. If you put the nose wire in, you know, especially if you wear a mask and wear glasses at the same time, if you don't put the nose wire in, then like oftentimes you'll be fogging up your glasses, right? So putting a nose wire is just fits it around your nose better, and then you can wear glasses more comfortably. And because there's like not a gap around the nose, then obviously that equals to more protection as well. So this piece is about 6 inches of floral wire. Like I said, you could use sort of any wire, like jewelry wire or whatever. So I cut 6 inches. And if you notice at the end here, when you cut it, I like to sort of turn the edge over, right? Just to make a loop at the edges, just so it doesn't poke through your materials, right? Because if you leave it sort of raw, then it has a likelihood of like poking through things. So I just folded that over on each end so that it's not, I think you can see that, great. So identify where the top of your mask is. So it's here with the pleats going down. So I'm gonna put this through the filter pocket and grab it at the top of the mask so that the nose wire is at the very top there. So now it's here. And then I'm gonna stitch it down from the outside, and I'll show you, I use sort of a different stitch to just stitch it in place. So with the nose wire here, I'm going to stitch at the very end here around the wire. So the wire is right here, and I'm going to stitch in and make a circle. So, sorry, there it is. And then I'm going to come back here and go from back to front. I'm moving about an inch over, and you'll see it creates this sort of wrapping stitch. So I go about an inch over from back to front, and you see it wraps around the wire again. And then I'll just go do the same stitch throughout to the entirety of the nose wire. And like I said, you can use pipe cleaners, you can use, some people use paper clips. If you stretch out the paper clip, you can use a paper clip. You can use, you know, if you want to cut up like part of a hanger, you can use that. Any sort of wire. And so I'm just going to go through the entirety of it to hold it in place. And then knot it at the end. And I'm finished inserting the nose wire. And that's it. Thank you so much for participating. If there's any more questions, I'm happy to stay on and take those questions. Like I said, at this moment as well, I'm going to look up that that pattern that I use, or the YouTube tutorial that I use to find how to make the machine masks.
I'm going to unmute all if anyone has any questions.
Ate, may question ka ba? Naka-unmute ka ba? O hindi? Huh?
Okay, as I understand it, this will be available for us to view online. Is that the same exact?
Yes, we'll send it to all the participants, and we'll also have it on our website, 6018north.org.
Okay, because I have arthritis and I couldn't keep up, so I'd like to see it.
Oh, yeah. That's what we, because we wanted everyone who could join today, as well as anyone who joined today could pass it on to others, or do at your own pace later. So yeah,
Good.
we should probably have that by tomorrow, if not today.
Great.
Thank you for making it available.
Thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm trying quickly to find that. Of course, when I need it the most is when it's hard for me to find the link. But I know where it is. Here it is. I'll put that in right there.
For our pin tucks. And there's a really easy way to do this without having to mark it. What I want to do,
Oops. Even though you... All right, there. Right. So this is me wearing it. And then the pleats I like because you can, you can open it up and it fits around the face, and then you can, press the wire to fit your face, and then there it is.
Thank you very much, Aram. Thank you
so much. And feel free to reach out if you have any specific questions. I will do my best. Like I said, there's a lot of information out there, and some of it's a little confusing. But and if, like I said, Trisha shared that link for how to, the info of how to share masks, or how to send masks to incarcerated people in Illinois if you are interested.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Excellent.